Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I share my recent Forbes article, How to Avoid and Counteract Gaslighting as a Leader. Welcome back to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. It's great to be with you again today as I share a recent Forbes article, How to Avoid and Counteract Gaslighting as a Leader. We've all been there. A leader conveys a particular negative message, a certain harmful policy or practice is put in place, or shifting priorities result in moving away from what was previously discussed or agreed upon. Sometimes this happens in completely innocent ways. After all, we're all imperfect, fallible individuals, and we fall down and mess up even when we have the best of intentions. Sometimes things are even unclear in our own mind, or we simply forget. However, whether the mistake is innocent or not, intentional or not, when employees receive these types of shifting mixed messages, the result is increased confusion and disorientation, as well as a decrease in trust, morale, and employee engagement. In my experience, team members are usually pretty understanding and forgiving when something like this happens, as long as the leader can acknowledge the gaffe or mistake, sincerely apologize, and work to resolve the issue and harms they may have caused. When this happens, leaders show their vulnerability, humility, and willingness to learn and grow, and in so doing, they are able to develop deeper relationships of mutual accountability and trust with their people. The real problem emerges when a clear pattern of leadership mistakes, coupled with not acknowledging or accepting responsibility, results in leaders scapegoating others or even gaslighting members of their team. The toxicity of gaslighting in the workplace. What is gaslighting? Psychologists define it as a specific type of manipulation where the manipulator is trying to get someone else or a group of people to question their own reality, memory, or perceptions. When a leader gaslights others, whether it is intentional or not, rather than holding themselves accountable, they retroactively try to shift the context and understanding around the issue at play. Rather than admit a mistake was made or provide justifications for why some change was made, they pretend like what happened is what was always understood or agreed upon. Of course, team members know this is not the case, so the leader has done nothing more than discredit themselves and undermine their own influence with their team. Sometimes individuals may manipulate or gaslight and be unaware they're even doing it, or perhaps they do it with the best of intentions, trying to manipulate others to arrive at what they think is a mutually beneficial positive outcome. However, often gaslighting is a tactic actively and intentionally used by toxic leaders to maintain power and control over their people with incredibly damaging effects. As stated in a recent Harvard Business Review article, gaslighting is a particularly nefarious form of toxicity due to its subtle and insidious nature. While it is easy to spot toxic leaders who scream, bully, and abuse publicly, gaslighting behavior is much more covert. Gaslighters know how to fly under the radar. They are adept at undermining an employee's self esteem, confidence, and sense of reality in subtle, sneaky, and hard to prove ways. Because this form of toxic bullying can be hard to detect and even harder to prove, leaders who regularly gaslight can often cause extensive harm to their team over an extended period of time. Regardless of the intention, this common workplace behavior is toxic, undermines trust, and should be avoided. Avoid and counteract gaslighting. How can you proactively avoid gaslighting, even if done unintentionally? Below are several approaches that will help you to avoid gaslighting as well as counteract gaslighting from others on your leadership team. Practice regular self reflection and foster intellectual humility. We don't know what we don't know, and if we have a gaslighting blind spot in our interactions with our people, we need to be humble and teachable enough to question our own recollection and understanding of past events and agreements and open ourselves up to critical self examination. As we practice regular self reflection and strive for intellectual humility, we will be in a better position to notice when gaslighting is happening and take steps to stop it. Actively listen to the perceptions of your team members. Just because a leader may think they are staying consistent, being fair, and holding themselves accountable, doesn't mean that perception is shared by members of the team. As most of the negative impacts of gaslighting happen regardless of intention, as long as those impacted feel like they are being gaslit, leaders need to seek regular feedback from their people and actively listen to make sure the perceptions of team members are understood. Practice vulnerability and own up to your mistakes. Leaders need to be emotionally and psychologically secure enough in their own leadership style and approach to be willing to practice transparent vulnerability and take responsibility for mistakes. Be willing to acknowledge the missteps, apologize, and try to make things right with your people. Modeling vulnerability in your team will also increase the likelihood of team members being willing to do the same. Develop and sustain authentic relationships of mutual accountability and trust. Ultimately, leadership is about trust. When gaslighting occurs, trust and thereby influence is destroyed. Proactively work to develop and sustain genuine relationships of mutual accountability and trust with your people, and make it clear that toxic gaslighting behaviors will not be tolerated by you or any other members of your team. Then live up to it. In conclusion, nobody wants to work with a gaslighting, toxic colleague or boss. As we understand the negative implications of gaslighting in the workplace and take proactive steps to avoid and counteract these behaviors, we can create a healthy, psychologically safe, and dynamic work environment and culture that will allow everyone to thrive. I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life.
check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.